Okay, it's recorded. Good. Okay, first I would like to talk about homework assignment number 4. This assignment is not really about writing program, but more about reading the program. So what we learned in the past 2 lectures was related to exception handling. So as you can see that, particularly from the last lecture, that we're using a class called ecs36b exception, which that class is going to generate or collecting a bunch of exception condition and put it all into one single data structure, which is a JSON. So you can actually collect all the exception related to one particular run of the program between client and server. So what we want you to do at the high level, instead of for you to write a program, but I want you to write a JSON, which is going to trigger a lot of exception. And essentially, we want to make sure that you can trigger the highest amount of the exception possible with one single JSON. So essentially, that which means that you have to read the source code to see what are the exception condition that's actually going to be triggerable. And so you will actually tweaking the JSON such that it will trigger. Remember, for example, one of the condition I used as last week was instead of longitude, I add a few T. When I add a few T, I'm actually triggering a particular exception condition. That's one thing. But also the other example I use is that particular attribute, key value pair, the value is expected to be a number. But then what I did is I convert a chain to a string that will generate another exception. Okay, so essentially we want you to be able to look at the source code and then generate the highest possible amount of exception. Essentially getting all, well, I have to qualify when I say highest amount. When I say highest amount, I'm not saying that, well, you can construct an array of 2,000 elements or 2 million elements, and each of the elements trigger one exception. That's actually counted as one type of exception. So there is some qualifier about what count to be a new exception. So essentially, exception handling is that for each of the class, I will tell you what that class is because that is related to your final project as well. And for each of the class that they have a bunch of exception condition, I want you to construct a JSON that will hit all of them at least once. So array typically is repeating the same class multiple times, but that only, constitute one time. Okay, so that's basically number one. That's high level what we want to do. To be more specific about homework and grading, and this one is going to be graded automatically. So which means that I'm actually going to run my server on this computer. So when you come to the lecture, then you try to submit your JSON to my server. Or when I'm not in the class, I will turn on the server so you can still submit. So you will submit to the server, and the server is going to grade it immediately to say, well, how many exceptions you have actually hit, and what's the highest possible amount of exception you should have hit. So based on what your JSON and what the highest, you might get 100% of that 10%, or you get 70, 80, depending on the amount of the proportionally. Okay, and you can submit multiple times. You can submit multiple times, so which means that at the first time you hit, you only got 50%. But then you hit the next time, you got 70%, 80%, 90%. Eventually you hit 100%, you say, I'm done. And then you can actually stop trying. Okay, so the thing is that, the other thing is important when you submit your JSON. So one of the things you need to include as the part of the key value pair is your ting name. So you have your ting and your ting name, and such that we will be able to provide, assign the grade to all the team member appropriately. Okay, so that's actually, I'm actually give you that the source code that you're going to hit the exception is actually in the master directory. And I gave an example about the post because we're going to talk about a post. So let me tell you high level. I'm going to spend a lot of time today to talk about post, but post is essentially, in terms of the complexity, in terms of the syntax of the object-oriented programming, is very similar to personal timed GPS record.cpp or .h. They basically have an array. They basically have subclasses. They have all kinds of attributes. It's more complicated. I mean, in the personal time GPS record, we have probably only one array, which is the array of all your record. But in the post, we probably have a 7 or 8 different array, or 7 or 8 different vector, because it needs to capture number of comment, number of reaction, number of here and there. Okay, so it's more, think about a post is essentially equivalent to a Facebook post. So it includes all the feature like that. In fact, it was actually developed following the design of Facebook post. Okay, so it's a posts over there. So you're actually going to look at one of the posts. I mean, I have a multiple of this. You can take one of the posts and start tweaking within this post and try to trigger all the exception condition. Just let you know, one of the, I would say, a interesting part is make sure that this post might not contain all the available feature. For example, it doesn't have the tagging for all various kinds. So you might need to actually add the tag to the JSON, which means that you actually have that, and then you can actually send it together full scope. Okay, and I will turn on the server. I will actually collect all the grade by June 12th. So you must submit the best you can, okay, by June 12th. And also, I will do one thing is that, well, one of the things I want to prevent students not to share their 100% or their full score JSON, whatever JSON with other team. Okay, if you think about that, this homework could be so easy if Team A just share with me their successful JSON, and I would just submit that JSON and I'm done. Okay, and I want to discourage that behavior. So you must not share that. If the server actually detect 2 JSON that coming in with the exception of the team name, the rest are the same, then I will consider this as a plagiarism. And then basically, I will actually receive one warning. You will receive one warning saying that, hey, this is the same. But if the second one that was submitted from the same team, then basically both the team that's actually submitting and the team, they are actually, the value are the same. Both will receive a 0%. Okay, so just make sure that you can communicate with a concept, you can communicate with a principle, you can communicate with which file, which portion of file you have read, but you must develop your own JSON. Okay, and we will actually right. I'm actually using a program, so you submit, you will know when you receive the first warning that oh, wait a minute, this is something which is, yeah. Okay, that's the first thing I would like to talk about. And if I have a time today, I will continue this subject to talk about what do I expect and what's the process for the final project. Okay. Any question for homework assignment number 4? Okay. Oh, by the way, I will provide you a program for you to read your JSON and then to submit to the server, because it will need to have the correct URL and has to the correct port number and things like that. Okay. Okay, so now let's actually take a look. I do want to tell you one thing. This happened after my last lecture on Tuesday. I mean, I don't know how many of you have been already follow the source code I provide under the master directory, but I want to just let's take a look at this. If you go to the GitHub, you can see that I actually changed a bunch of things not so long ago. Action.cpp, comment.cpp. You see that everything says yesterday, it was changed after the last lecture on Tuesday. You see, I changed a bunch of things. I want to tell you what did I change, and which I want to share with you that's a kind of experience I learned over time as a programmer. Let me actually tell you what I changed. If you remember, I will show you just one file. I will go to personal time GPS record.cpp. Okay. So what I did change is this, is go to JSON to object. If you remember last time when I present, you can actually either go to GitHub to retrieve the previous version, or you can go to the YouTube video to see when I talk about this piece of code. And the first few things I check is whether that pointer argument JSON pointer is a null or not. And also I'm actually checking whether it's an object. Okay, it's both is a null, is an object. So I actually need to do that for every single JSON to object among all the classes that we touched in this directory. So gradually I realized, oh, I'm actually repeating the same kind of functionality, the same kind of code every single class, which means that if I want to, okay, let me tell you that why I actually change that. The number one reason I need to change, I actually need to add an extra attribute, because during last lecture, I actually realized, I said, wait a minute, we're actually looking at the exception condition, we'll accumulate all the exception. But one thing I really like to know is that what's the array index? So I talk about, okay, this exception occurred in this particular class. And this exception occurred because of this particular attribute. That's what and where. That's two attributes. But I also realized last time we're dealing with array, which is a vector. And I would like to know is exactly which of the array, means which index in the array that this exception happened. That is also important. So I actually adding a new attribute, which I believe is under ecs36b exception.h. So you can see that I actually add a new line 17, which is the array index. I actually adding one extra piece of information. But then after I introduce this, I essentially need to go to every single class to actually change to adding this new value, to set the value correctly. And whenever you see that the array index is a 0 by default, because if it's not an array, then this new attribute is not very useful. But there are classes, it does need to be set appropriately. And therefore, I realized that, okay, I have to basically modify all the file And then I'm also, while I'm doing that, I realized, wait a minute, if in the future I want to add another thing, which is extensible, then I have to change everything again. So then I realized, oh, I better do something different to make it easier. So now you see what I did here. If you go to personal GPS record, you actually see now in my dump to JSON, let me show you here. I introduce a new function called pre-check. I add a new function called pre-check, JSON to object pre-check, which with the argument, then I will show you where's the pre-check was implemented. The pre-check was implemented in the ecs36b json.cpp. So I'm adding a new function called pre-check with this 3 arguments. And then you can see that I'm just basically copy all the code over here from there. So you see the first one, I'm going to check is whether that JSON pointer is null. And the second one, if the pointer is null or the JSON is null, is not an object, then I'm actually going to basically handle this piece of code. Okay, so you can see that I kind of extract this piece of code from every single file and with only one function, so they can actually call it. And then in the future, if I want to change everything, you see, one of the important thing, I have to add this line. This line really triggers me to do to make this function, because I realize I have to add that line to every single .cpp file. And which means that in the future, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that again. So this is a simple software engineering principle. Once you start to doing object-oriented programming, you realize that there is a similar structure, and then you can actually pack into a function. Okay, that's one thing if you're wondering why there are so many changes. And the other thing which I did is what I call the JSON to object append EI, exceptional whatever. It's actually also with a similar code. I realized it occurs almost everywhere. So I actually modify every file and then replace it. Let me actually show you how it looks like. This one is called JSON to object append EI. Let me actually go back to the code. Inside the JSON object, let me see. Okay, here. You see that here I have an array, and then I basically call JSON append, and with the AI. What's AI? AI is the array index. And I put the array index into there. So now the code can actually generate not just all the exception condition, but also generate the array index as well. So this is another function. So it's number one, is really for cleaner of the code. But surprisingly, whenever I did this, by the way, I did this so many times in my programming career, is that I always started develop, and then I realized there is similar pattern. And then I try to consolidate into a function. Now I actually replace. And whenever I do this consolidation, I'll always discover some of the logical bugs I had before. You can think about, I just adding one line here, but this line pushed me to walk through every single file under the JSON to object. And through that process, I'm actually trying to review all the code I wrote. And then I realized, oh, there was a logical bug in this particular routine. So you can see that this is going to be a process that any programmer need to go through. So you always develop, and then you see something different. Okay, so just share with you what's happening. Okay, so now I'm actually going to talk about homework 4, but this is also for your final project. I'm going to look at Post.h. Okay, Post.h, this is essentially try to reflect. This is similar to what as I mentioned, is social media like a Facebook. They actually follow the structure. So let me actually go over here very quickly at the high level. So I have a class called post. I have a class called post, and let's look at all the attribute it has. All right. So the first attribute is identity, which means that every single post need to have ID. Okay, meaning that, okay, this post is regarding 2024 presidential election, or this post is related to UC Davis student employee strike, right? There need to be some kind of identity we can differentiate one post from the other, okay? I will tell you that eventually this ID, in fact, had a 3-portion, okay? The ID actually under Facebook has a 3-portion. The first portion identify the page or the group that this post was posted. And the second one was a unique ID under that particular page. What's the page ID? And the third portion is regarding the comment. What ID identify the particular comment respond to that post? So that's why you can uniquely identify not just the post, but you can identify the comment as well. Okay, so that's the identifier is a class. So you can see that identifier is a class. It's not a string. So where's identifier? I believe, okay, this one is tricky, so I will tell you. The identifier was actually within ecs36b common. So if you go to ecs36b common, so that's why I say you have to spend time to read the code. So under ecs36b common, you can see a bunch of things. One of the class I define is called JSON div. Okay, I will talk about JSON difference later, but I don't know whether this is a blessing or curse to you guys. You are the first ecs36b class I ever taught that's actually including JSON div, because I have done so many times with ecs36b and so many times with JSON, I realized there's a feature I really need is called JSON difference. I can compare the difference between two different JSON. This actually happened a lot. For example, you submit a record, which is the time location record, and you submit another one. I actually want to know sometimes is what's the difference, what's the new thing. So JSON div, I actually developed this probably in January this year. So the last time I taught ecs36b was at the end of 2023. So that's why this is a new thing. So it's really useful. Kind of just share with you. It's a very fresh. But related to that is the identifier. The class identifier was here. You can see that I have a 3-portion of the ID. The first portion is a profile, is a page or group or person. Either of that. The second one is a post ID. The third one is a comment ID. Okay, so this is a match exactly like what is a Facebook post. It's a page ID, profile ID, and there is a post ID, and then there is a comment ID. This match exactly. Okay. So that's identifier. Let me actually go back to the post. Not CPP. I have to go to post.h. Okay, that's identifier. And then I have a author. An author is the person who actually wrote this post initially. Okay. And also I have this one is kind of a little bit extended from what the Facebook post is, that I actually have a vector or person that received this. So in Facebook, they have like whether your friends can see it or everybody can see it. So it has a bunch of like a category of people can share that. But this one is like almost like a group email, meaning that when you actually want to have a bunch of receivers who actually are allowed to actually see this. So the granularity is a bit finer grain than the typical Facebook post. Okay. And of course, this is both related to person, class. By the way, when I mention a class, each of the class is going to have a JSON to object. And each of the class, let's go to person. So that's why I say you have to look at the different code. For example, if you go to person.h, so this is another class, and you can see that the person.class is a bunch of attribute, and then one of the attribute is the GPS location. It really just have the ID, the name, and the GPS location. That's it. Okay, a person is not that complicated. And if you look at the person.cpp, if you go to a person.cpp, this is the implementation, and it must have a JSON to object. It has always have a dump to JSON and JSON to object. It always have this two, because with this two, I can do conversion back and forth. Okay, so you can see that it has all the exception handling. Okay, I replaced this already, which why yesterday or the day before. I remember I worked until like midnight to actually change it on Tuesday evening. So you can see that it basically provide all the check. Each of the check is going to generate some kind of exception. Okay, you have to look at the code to see, oh, how do I actually trigger this exception? For example, I'm actually going to trigger this exception if you have some place which has involved a person, and that person has a VSID is null. But over here, there was actually two exceptions you can generate. The first exception is the VSID is null. The second one is the VSID is not a string. Okay, there are two exceptions. So you have to kind of provide that in order for the code to actually generate. You can see that the first one is over here. If it's a null, it's actually going to generate JSON key missing. You don't have the key VSID, but the other exception is ecs36b arrow JSON key type mismatch. Okay, key value type mismatch. This one. So this consider two different what code, which means two different exceptions for the purpose of homework assignment number 4. Okay. Okay, let's go back. Any question, by the way? Okay, so let's go back to post.h. So now we're having identifier, person, and the author and the receiver, which is they're both receiver or author are from the class person, except one is a vector because you could have multiple receiver. One is who is the author. Okay, and then we're looking at the message. The next one is a message. So whenever you write something on the post, you must have some message. That's basically the body of the post itself. So message itself is also a class. By the way, I actually kind of comment out line 30 is because in the earlier version, I do have the post have all kind of revision because somebody actually write a post and after a while they actually decide, oh, I have a typo or I have some error, so I'm actually going to revise. So I used to keep track of all the revision a particular user when they do the post. So I have the revision, which helped me to track. I mean, this is, by the way, is very useful in a social media system. Think about this. If I post something first, and there are people reacting to that, but that reaction or that comment was based on an earlier version. But then what I did is that I actually modified. I changed in a way. For example, I changed my political alignment or changed my opinion about what happened in, say, UC Davis student employee strike. And if I change, then you can imagine that the people who make comments and reaction after that change is going to be different. But if I only keep the latest message it's actually helped me. It's actually very not very helpful for me to interpret people's reaction and people's comment. So that's why I feel that it's good, which by the way, this is a feature Facebook does not have with their interface, is regarding the revision, meaning that, well, when I look at this, I really want to know what kind of content the user have seen to make that reaction or to make that comment. Okay, that's why I had that, but I kind of comment that out, but I still believe that it's a very useful correlation for me to understand the causality about a comment to a content. Okay, so let's actually look at message. So what is a message? Message is also a class. So message is in one of the class is a message.h. So you can see that I have a message, and the message is pretty simple. I already simplified a lot of things. So message is really just a content, nothing else. Okay, just a content, just a string. I kind of have a message, but you will see, well, why don't I make a string? Okay, I actually earlier is more complicated than this, but I actually think, okay, for ecs36b, I should probably just make it simple, make a message. But you can think about this is that you can add certain feature to a class looks like this. So that will lead to some of discussion about your final project. And you can actually add something to a message such that you can process the message somewhat differently than it currently is. Okay, so the same thing, you can see that every single class I have a dump to JSON, I have a JSON2 object to handle all kinds of exception. Okay, all right. So now let's go back to posts. That's why I want to present to you the post, because a post is essentially the largest class that it includes every single other class that's actually presented in the most of them in the directory. Okay, so we're done with message. Okay, now we have a bunch of vector. You can see I have like 6 different vector over here. Let's skip this vector directly to the next few things. I'm going to come back right after I process the rest. Okay, the rest is this 4. This 4 is simpler. This 4 means that, okay, when was this post created? When was this post last updated? Okay, updated meaning that if somebody click a like, that's considered update. Because somebody click a like, that means this post has changed its status, and the difference is without and with the like. Or somebody actually removed the like, that's also an update. So anything that touches anything within the class is an update. I want to keep track of that time. Okay, so you have a creator, you have update. Both of them is JV time, which is another class you should familiar now. And then there is another attribute, which is the location. And there is another class, which is called, it's a bool. It's not even a class. It's not a class, it's a bool, saying that whether this post has been published. Okay, historically, this one is here, but I never use it. I mean, the reason I said I included here, it was because Facebook has it. Okay, if you actually use Facebook API to download any kind of post from Facebook, and when you download the post, it's basically a huge, gigantic JSON in some of the cases, really huge. I probably mentioned that one of the posts I downloaded in 2016 was about 20 gigabyte. Just one post was 20 gigabyte. Because why? Because it has 400,000 comments and like a 10 million reaction. Okay, I have to download. Okay, and so they have this feature is published. So I just include there, but I never use it seriously. Okay. So that's pretty much, I have talked about everything about this class called post, except this 6 vector. So let's actually think about what I just tell you. The post looks complicated. It has a various attribute that's model a modern social media system. and with a bunch of vector. In terms of quantity of attribute, it's complicated. But in terms of the conceptual difficulty, this is nothing more than the one you deal with in homework assignment number 3, part 2, which is personal time GPS record. Because over there, you have a GPS, you have a time, you have vector as well. Okay, so the thing is that I just want to tell you that you already have the concept. Now you just need to deal with the scale of the information you need to handle. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this 6. I want to tell you that there are 3 categories in this 6. The first category I would say is really simple, is action and the link. Those two are links and action. I would say they're almost identical, but they're capturing different kind of information. So the action was a Facebook mechanism to allow what kind of action can be applied to this particular post. And link is whenever you share, remember, you can have a link to an image, a link to a video, a link to another web page. That's when you share, you can provide a link. So that's essentially, you can provide multiple links, by the way. I'm not sure about Facebook right now, but over here, at least in the post, we allow you to share multiple links, not just one single link. I think in Facebook for a long time, I can only share like one link per post as the main. Maybe more than one. I just, maybe I didn't use Facebook for a while. I don't know the current situation. Okay, so let's look at link first. Okay, it's a class. It's a vector, but this vector is based on the class link. So let's take a look at link. Link is here, link.h. It's also, every single class should be really simple, except maybe 1 or 2. So you can see that the link is, I really just have a one single string. Attribute is URL. I call it URL. So I have the link over there. And you can see that it has constructor, and it has a operator overloading, and it has this dump to JSON and JSON to object. Okay, so that's very simple. So that should take care of, I can show you a little bit about action. Action, if I remember, is very simple. Yeah, you can see that the action is also a string. So that's why I said action and link, they're almost identical. It just both has a one single non-trivial attribute called, it's a string, and the rest interface should be the same. Okay, so okay, that's take care of that. Let's go back to post. I want to, okay, I have 3 things left here. One is called the key. I have a key, and this key is a class O key. So what is the key? The capability of the key is for search engine. So when you want to search a particular post, you have to say, well, what keyword will help us to identify this particular keyword? Okay, which post? So for example, oh, by the way, I should probably show you this to tell you why it looks like this. So this, by the way, I include this link in the homework assignment number 4. Maybe I go to homework assignment 4 and directly click on this. This is the link. Okay, this is a post JSON. So essentially, this post JSON should include the things that related to the attribute I just introduced to you. So let's take a look at this. So you can see that the first attribute is actions. We just went through. It has two actions because it's a vector. It has 2. And the first name is called please. By the way, this was created by an earlier ecs36b student, they actually want to have this action. One is called Felice and one is called Tiny Boba. I don't know why they call that. Okay, don't ask me. Okay, they actually have that. And then they have a comment. I'm not going to talk about comment right now. The comment is the most complicated class. You can see that it has a lot of things. And then it has a time, creation time. It has a history. Oh, by the way, the history is trying to capture all the update, which you don't need to worry about that for ECF36B spring 2024, because I already removed anything that to do with history, but the JSON is still there. Okay, you have ID, which is this ID is a post. So you have this part is the page ID and this part is a post ID, because this one is not a comment, so it doesn't have the ID. Okay, now let's actually take a look at the other ID, which is the comment ID. The comment ID, where's the comment? Here, you see that? Here I have a one comment, and this comment ID has a three portion. Have you see that? The first part is the the page ID or profile ID. The second one is post ID. The third one is a comment ID. Okay, it was have a three portion, follow the tradition of Facebook. Okay, this part is ID is published is true. Okay, now this is what I want to do. It's a key. So this basically, this post define what are the keywords that supposed to link to this particular post. Okay, so in this case that we have this post has a three keyword: sunglass, blue bottle. Okay, those kind of keyword. You can provide as many as you want as the keywords. And usually in a company such as Google or Bing, what they did is they actually go to the content and try to extract what should be the appropriate keywords that's actually related to this post. And then they have something called index engine based on the key to decide when you do a search on a particular keyword, what should be the order of the post ranking and such that will provide it to the people who provide the search. So in other words, if a post without keyword, which means that this post is unsearchable. So what is a keyword? You can see from the JSON, it must be a vector and each of the key must be a string. Okay, and then we have a link, we have a message. Okay, this must be created from one of the earlier students. The message is very simple, coffee is great. And it has a reaction, has two, and things that have an update time and things like that. Okay, so this is one example post. So, okay, let me get back to the code. Okay, so far, oh, I know why it's here, because I have been using GitHub. I want to go to posts again. So let me, before I do go to codes, I go to the key, because we just went through this one. So the key is, no, I clicked the wrong, oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay, good. Okay, it's here. So you can see that in the keyword class, OK. Let me first tell you, it still have dump to JSON and JSON to object. Every single one. This is related to homework 4 because you want to trigger this homework 4 to be actually generate the exception that's supposed to generate. Okay, so here is the OK directory. It has the keyword. Each of this has a keyword, OK. But also it has a vector about the post that's actually associated with that. That's actually have the keyword that's a searchable. So essentially the OK was used to present the keyword list but it's also used by the search engine. So when somebody do a search on one of the keyword or two of the keyword, I just directly come here and then retrieve all the posts. This is a very simple way, okay? The real search engine will be more complicated, but this one is just basically, if you give me a key, I will actually give you all the posts. Okay, that's the search engine, how it works in the most simplified way. Okay, so this is a little bit different from link and action. It not only has the string, but it has a vector of a post we need to deal with. Okay. Okay, by the way, this is interesting. I don't know if you you see the difference. If you go to the post.h, you see that I actually define a post, right? I define a post, but then the post must be defined after you have defined OP, right? Because I'm actually using OP as one of my attributes. So to define the class post, which means that I should have already defined OP before I can define post, right? If you follow what I'm saying here. However, in the OP, I have the similar situation. In order for me to define OK, I need to have the post defined as well. Okay, you see that there is a circular dependency. There is a conflict. This happens, by the way, a lot in programming. You probably should already encounter that when you're dealing with ecs36b. So which means that you define a struct. The struct include an attribute that's actually for another struct. So which means that if you don't define that struct first, that the compiler don't know how to actually handle this struct, new struct you try to create. But now between OK and the post, they have a circular dependency. Post depend on OK, OK depending on post. Have you encountered this kind of situation before? Okay, so how do you handle that? If you actually have a circular dependency, you see that there is a trick. That's why we need to use pointer. You see that whenever I do this, I'm not using post, but I'm using post star. You see that I'm actually using post star. What's the difference between post and post star? How many bytes I need to provide in the memory for post? How many bytes I need to provide for post star, which is the pointer? The first one is tricky. I have to calculate. But the second one is easy. Why? A pointer, regardless, is a pointer to post, or the post is a pointer to OK. It's always 8 byte in 64 bits computer. In 32-bit is 4 byte. In 64-bit is always 8 byte. So this has to do with memory calculation. By the way, I never have to say this to Python programmer or Java programmer, but I have to say this to all the C++ programmer. C++ programmer is very important for the compiler to have a deterministically decide how big of the memory layout for a particular class you define. If the compiler has no way to determine that, it's a syntax error. Compiler is going to generate. So this one, just look at the OK. Will I be able to determine how many memory bytes of this particular class called OK? Yes, I can. Why? Because over here I have OK. OK is what? Is a string. So I know how big is a string to represent. And then over here, what is this? It's a pointer. It's a pointer to a vector, or it's a pointer to whatever, post star, but it's always a pointer. So pointer, I know, is 8 byte. So it's really just 8 byte plus whatever byte. Okay, so when you deal with this kind of circular dependency, you have to use a pointer. You have to use pointer because the pointer is something I can fix. But the one thing I need to do is this line. I have to say class post. Have you done this before? You can probably say, you can replace that keyword class to struct if you're in the context of ECF36A. But in ECF36B, we start to use a class. So what does this mean? If I say class post, what does this mean? This means that I said, okay, literally in a layman language, how I would use it. What's a class post? It meaning that, hey, there is a class called post. I haven't defined it at this moment, but I want to use it in the pointer format. Okay, so let me tell you, when I say class post, means that that class is exactly what I don't know, but there is a class exists somewhere else. But in this program, I'm going to use post as a class, but not as a class itself, but as a pointer to the class. That's the only thing I'm saying. Okay, that's why I have to define class post without anything. The compiler basically, they take a look at that. They will not, by the way, go to the post to look at. By the way, if you look at this, in this case, I do have the post.h over here, but if you remove this post.h, but if you only have this will be sufficient for you to actually be able to compile this piece of code. Because all I'm saying that, hey, I have a class called post, and then I'm just using this as a pointer to break the circulation between the two classes. And similarly, what I did for post, if you look at the way I do post, I have the class OK, and then I just use OK as a pointer. I'm not using it because I cannot use it as a OK itself because I don't know why it is. If I actually use this not as a pointer, it's a recursive. Okay, I'm actually between the class post and class OK, they have a recursive circulation, which memory, I cannot calculate how many bytes I need. But whenever I change this to pointer, I actually know it's 8 bytes. So that's why you see that when I define this class, I'm a how do I say that? I want to avoid any kind of trouble. So I always use pointer because pointer is 8 bytes. Then I know compiler won't complain. And then I just need to deal with the new and delete the memory, dynamic memory allocation issue. Okay. So that's the moment why I have this OK and why I have to have class OK to put it here in order to just declare that. Okay, basically here I say, hey, I want to declare class OK, and here I'm actually using the OK as a pointer. Okay, all right. So now I took care of action, link, OK, these three things. So now the remaining three is a comment, reaction, and the JSON difference. Okay. I'm not going to talk about JSON difference, but this is a piece of code that's actually kind of interesting to be generally useful when you want to deal with the JSON that you want to see the difference, and then you can actually, by the way, I could be wrong about this. I search many times from the web and try to find out any kind of object-oriented programming related to JSON, whether they have a nice tool to help me to understand the difference between two JSON, and I couldn't. So sometimes as a programmer, you will encounter the same kind of situation, is that you realize that this tool, you wish this tool was there for you to do programming much easier, but it's not there. So after you have this kind of frustration several times, then eventually you sit down saying that, hey, I have a few days, I want to develop a tool myself. Okay, so by the way, one of my instructional objectives for ECF36b, as always, is that I want you to try to build your own tool. when you do the programming, you actually see so many things, you realize, wait a minute, I really want this, write your own code, okay? So I will introduce you because this piece of code is not that easy because you can see that JSON has a it's a very simple syntax, but it has so many level of depths. It could be recursion here and there. So this code actually related to JSON diff is it's a pretty long piece of code for me to do a lot of recursion to take care of all the cases I need to take care with array and other things. So I will introduce this later. But if you're interested, this piece of code is under ecs36b JSON, I believe. So just to let you know, if you want to see how the code looks like, let me see. I have most of the code in ecs36b JSON are short, but except this one. Okay, must be some, oh no, JSON diff. Okay, JSON diff. Yeah, this piece of code is the starting from line 385 of this file is JSON difference. It returns a vector of a vector or pointer to JSON diff as a class. It basically calculate the three argument is the first JSON, the second JSON, and then you have what I call a vector of prefix, because I want to actually, if you think about what JSON is you have key value pair and it actually going in depths. So I want to actually capture the whole path. So it's like a file name or whatever. So that's why I have to have a vector of a string represent that path. I call the argument prefix. And over here, you can see that I'm actually have to consider many cases. And this piece is actually a little bit longer than others. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about this right now. I want to talk about reaction and comments. Those are the remaining two pieces for us to understand. Okay, so we're going to look at comments and reaction. I'm going to first talk about reaction because reaction is simpler. Comment will use reaction because you could have a reaction to a post or you can have a reaction to the comments. You can have a reaction for both. So let's take a look at the reaction first. So what is a reaction? Reactions is a vector of pointer to reaction. Okay, so reactions means that how many reactions you accumulate for this post. Sometime you could be, as I mentioned during previous election, easily the reaction beyond 10 million for one single post. Okay, easily for some of the media. And so let's take a look at the reactions. So it's a single reaction. So come to reaction over here. Okay, here's a reaction. It's not that complicated about reaction. The reaction only have three things. So it has a type, because the type could be love, hate, like, something like that. There is all kinds of emotional that you want to put it into the type. That's the reaction type. And then who actually provide this reaction? I actually include author, who actually clicked the like, who actually hate this. So this is, so now you can actually see that how our privacy regarding our emotional status towards certain content has always been tracked by some of the server. Okay, so I can actually tell when, okay, by the way, when was you click the like, there is a time. So reaction, in some sense, very simple. What type of reaction, who actually react to that, and when did you react to that? Okay, this is the three things about a reaction. Okay, so it again has a constructor, destructor, it has operator overloading, and it has a JSON to object and dump to JSON, dump to JSON and JSON to object. Let me actually go to JSON to object a little bit. to actually see what is an exception, because now I want to talk about this and I want you to compare to comments, because those two are actually work together, and post also work together with reaction. But I want to go back to the reaction.cpp. Okay, reaction itself, the constructor is really simple. Just remember 3 arguments: type, author, and created time. Okay, operator equal is also the same thing, depending on how do you actually believe that 2 reaction is the same. Okay, by the way, this feature is a little bit different from Facebook. So Facebook, they mandate that one person can only have a one particular reaction to one particular content. So which means that you cannot hate and love the same content, right? You can only show your opinion once, but this design actually allows you to have a multiple one. So I actually consider 2 reactions are different, even though this is from the same person. You can see that the first one, the equal is the first to look at whether this persons are equal or not. And also I want to look at whether the type are actually the same or not. So which means that now with this logic, that I actually want to say that this 2 reaction is not equal if the type is different. Okay, so that's kind of the new thing. So which means that this design, I'm not saying is better or worse, but allow a person to have multiple reaction to the same content. Okay, you can have a different type of reaction to that, which is possible, right? For a particular candidate, you kind of love this candidate, but you also hate this candidate when he or she did something or say something. Okay, so that's the operator overloading. That's why operator overloading is interesting. It can play a lot of tricks into that. But dump-to-JSON is fine. You can read the code. I'm not going over that, but I want to talk a little bit about JSON to object, because this is related to. By the way, dump-to-JSON is not that easy to understand, but JSON to object is even harder. And in fact, this could be your blessing or could be your curse, is that this is the quarter I really want to go into deeper into JSON to object, which is related to exceptional handling. So the first one, remember I said pre-check. I actually had to modify this. I do a pre-check, but then the class is actually say this is what is JSON to object. This is a reaction. So now the exception know that this exception actually occurred in the reaction class. Okay, so then I'm actually going to check whether the type is a null or type is a string, and you can see that this piece of code follow again the reaction class, and also because it's a type, so then I have a type over here. I have a type saying that, hey, this is the attribute string I'm actually expecting, and you don't have it. By the way, if you look at this, even this, I think I can write a template to actually be able to make the code even shorter and more cleaner, I think. But I haven't got a chance to do that. And I hope that you can do that, or in the future, I will do that during the summer. Okay, it's always fun for me, programming. Just whenever I don't have anything to do is beer and programming. Okay. Well, sorry, programming and then beer. Okay. If I do beer programming, I will have a lot of bug. Okay, so it's always programming and then beer. Okay, and then go to sleep. All right. So so now the second attribute is create. Let me actually just go through this a little bit. So the create, what is a create? Creator is an object, is a JV type. Okay, so of course I have to check whether you have this create, and then if you have the create, look at what I did here, is that, okay, if the created is not null, if it's equal to null, means that you never have that before, then I have to create a new one. And then you can see I just call JSON to object. So essentially, this is JB time. I want to process a part of that JSON that passes into the reaction, and I extract that part, which has the created as a keyword. I shuffle only that portion of JSON into the JSON to object of the JB time. So it will be able to give me a JB time object in that case. Okay, so that's always a paradigm, is you take a huge JSON, which represents a post, you kind of slowly chop it down from one attribute to the other attribute, and you actually shuffle that into the JSON to object for that subclass. And then that they are going to recursively handle more and more. Okay, this is one of the, I would say, extended usage about how you can handle this object-oriented programming and with the recursion, with a bunch of inheritance hierarchy. Okay. So this will do that, but then it might trigger any exception, because whenever you do JSON to object, and inside the JSON to object, they are going to what? They're going to process and realize that, oh, you forgot, you don't have this attribute, or this type doesn't exist. So it's going to trigger an exception. So this one is going to lead to this one. And this catch routine is going to call a function which I just wrote yesterday called JSON append exceptional handling information. EI stands for exceptional handling, exception information. Why is append? Because I'm actually accumulating all the exception information into this one called LV exception pointer. Okay, I'm actually moving this E into this one because this one doesn't have an array. So the array index is a 0. That's why the new function, I kind of shuffle it into this. So I accumulate all the exception. That's why homework assignment number 4, you want to accumulate the most number of exception you can with one single post JSON that you can collect all of them. And then after you've done this, similarly for from, the from, however, is the same thing, but it's a person, because a from is a person. So you're actually going to do the author, new person, and then you're going to do the from part of the JSON to the same thing. And then you're going to call append again. Okay, so if you have both, you have a both, the time has exception and the person has exception, it will all be accumulated together into this LV exception PDR using this function called JSON to object append. And at the end, it will check this. So let me just tell you this again. So at the end, after you process all the things related to reaction, and then what you did is you check whether the LV exception pointer info vector dot size, whether this, by the way, the info vector itself is an array, C++ vector. So you want to check whether this array has a 0 entrance. If it's a 0 entrance, then you don't have any exception. Means that you already process all the information element successfully without triggering any exception. But as long as this one is not equal to 0, you're going to actually throw the whole thing. You're going to throw the whole thing, okay, to the upper level. So that's the style. To one level, you actually accumulate. By the way, over here, you can see that the LV exception PTR is already accumulate all the exception trigger, not just in this level of the code, but also with the whatever the next level it call, it will be kind of combine and append, and then eventually it should come over here. Okay, so that's the reaction part. Okay, so reaction is not that bad because it doesn't have a vector. So now we're going to see the last one, which is the comment.cpp, which is perfectly in my timing for today's lecture. So let's look at the last one, which I consider this is the second most complicated class in the whole directory, which is the comment.h. So let's actually take a look at comment.h. Okay, so comment.h, the first part is not that bad. Okay, a comment has identity, which has a 3 portion, which is the class's identifier, and then has a author. The comment has a message as well, and has a created time. If for some reason I didn't do updated time, but I think I should. A comment should be able to be updated as well. Okay, and then I have this 2 vector. That's interesting. The first vector is not surprising. It's a reaction because a comment could have received reaction, which we just talked about. By the way, reaction was one of the attributes in post, but reaction as a vector is also an attribute in comments. Okay, that's naturally if you use Facebook or any software, that's basically the typical design. But we also have the other one, which is text. So in some sense, I should be able to do that at the post level, but I decide not to do that. But I want people to be able to make a comment and be able to tag somebody else. Okay, so you will see that when I write a comment, is instead of writing something in content, I want to actually have somebody else actually see this comment. Then usually we just tag that person. So that's why we have another class called tags, which is also, again, is a vector because each of the comment you can have multiple tags into that. Okay, so let's actually first take a look at the tags itself. Then I will come back to look at the JSON to object. Okay, I will show you the text. Text is here. Okay, the text in fact has a 3 element. One is the index, one is the person you tag, and also you can provide a comment regarding why you provide that tag. Okay, that's the element about the tag. And again, it has the format of dump to JSON and JSON to object. Okay, I'm not going to into the detail of the tag. You can take a look at tag.cpp to figure out. But with the remaining 3 minutes, I want to go through one piece of code, which is in comment.cpp, which is probably one of the most important JSON to object I would like to go over. Here. That's the longest piece of code here. Okay, this is the second most complicated JSON to object. The most complicated is post.cpp, the JSON to object in post. But I think this will give you the flavor. Okay, so again, I do the pre-check. Okay, after pre-check, oh, you see that? That's a bug. I actually modified this pre-check. I forgot to delete this part. Okay, this part should be part of the function already taken care. I will fix that. I forgot. You see, we always make a bug here and there. Okay, so apparently before this, it should be removed. Okay, this is the code between wherever it was until line 183, it was redundant. Okay, so I will remove that and then upload. So, okay, so I have a first part, which is ID, very similar to before, so I'm not going to do anything. And then I have a from, which is a person. That's fine. I'm not going to deal with this. It's very similar to what we've seen before. You're actually doing the append and call JSON to object to a person. And message is nothing complicated. It's just similar to a class. And again, this structure. Creator is the same. It's only simple. Okay, here is the one that's complicated. So now I'm actually in the JSON to object. I need to handle the reactions, plural. So this part is a little bit different. So I want to extend the description a little bit. So first, let me actually tell you, in line 330A and 339, I'm actually first check whether you have the reactions keyword, Okay, if you have it, then I'm actually going to see the second one. I want to see if this is an array. because now I have to check. Not only you have a reactions, but your reactions JSON is actually an array. And the way I actually define the array, the keyword is data. So now let's actually take a look at this. You see, the way I deal with comment. Look at the comment. Comment has two keywords. One is called count. One is called data. And what's the data? Data is an array of comments. So by the way, the data and the count, this two attribute is very commonly used, and this is exactly the same keyword for Facebook. If you use Facebook API, it's always count and data to represent the array. That's why I kind of follow their tradition to structure this way exactly. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to finish this before I let you go. Please, if you have to leave the room, leave the room. Okay, and then if assuming you have the reaction, have the data, now you can see that I actually create, in this line, I create reaction, this to the reactions. And this part is a little bit different because in the array, I actually have a loop. This loop will let me go through each of the element in the reactions data array. Okay, you see that? When I'm actually going through AI is array index, argument JSON pointer, reactions data. This helped me to go through the paths to actually accessing the array, and that size means that how many elements in that particular JSON array. And within this JSON array, I actually have each of the index with AI. And what I did is with each of the element, I actually call reaction pointer JSON to object. So essentially, at the JSON level, I extract each element in the array and then pass only that particular element of the array. By the way, that element dot AI, the last one, into this LJV reaction, which is a JSON value, and I pass that particular variable into the JSON object of that reaction pointer. Okay, so I'm actually passing this into that. And then take a look at this. And now we actually, when we try to process that particular element of the array, we have an exception. And this will trigger this routine, JSON object append. But here you can see that the third element is no longer 0, it's AI, the index. So I pass the array index also into the JSON exception, so they will know that which element in this particular reaction array is actually causing the exception. Okay, so that's the structure of the code, and the rest. Okay, I do want to say there's a bunch of code after this. I'm actually doing one thing. I'm checking whether this reaction is actually already occurred, because remember, I want to remove any of the redundancy. So this piece of code is just checking whether this reaction means that same person, same reaction time. I'm going to remove that. And that's why when you see this, the reaction equal to reaction, this one is operator overloading for this, okay? So kind of complicated, but you have several considerations. First, you have to think about the recursive. Second, you have to think about how to handle the array. And the third one, you have to think about how to make sure you remove that redundancy in your social media posts. Essentially, this is what a social media assistant is doing. So essentially, I'm telling you that with the code, which you actually see in that master directory, if you're familiar with the code, you can build your own social media assistant with whatever extension you want. Okay, I'm going to talk about final project Tuesday, and then we're going to into the other topic. Okay, all right. Thank you for your participation. I will see you. You all have a good weekend.